Hello, everybody, and welcome to Command Point. This is Shane, and I am here to talk about the brand new Wyrmblade kill team that has been leaked. I am technically a few days late on this one, but since the leaks came out, I've been playing the team on TTS, and I've been piling through all these pages in the White Dwarf, and really trying to get a good feel for the team. So this is totally not scripted. I'm just gonna be candid and say that now. I am sitting here, I have a cup of coffee, I am with my thoughts, and I just want to talk about, I just want to talk about this whole team, because of all of the bespoke teams that have come out so far, this is easily my favorite. Not that I don't think the others are cool, because I think every bespoke team to some degree is pretty cool. But this one, I don't know what it is. It just kind of speaks to me. I don't know why, but it just does. So, I mean, let's look at the fire team, I guess, or I guess the whole kill team, because there's no fire teams. This is a bespoke. Okay, so you get the Neophyte leader and 13 Wyrmblade operatives. So this is a little bit of a, this is not really true, because you have access to these heroes, which this is like, technically Warp Coven is kind of similar to this, but this is the first team to really have, to go deep into this. Like, Wyrmblade has access to the Kellermorph, the Locus, Sanctus Sniper, and Sanctus Talon, and outside of that, it is like a Neophyte team. And the Neophytes are supplemented by these heroes. So these four heroes, which are called cult agents, that's what I'm going to refer to them as in this video, they count as two selections. So once the whole team is you've got your two cult agents, because you can only take two on a kill team. You pick two of the four. You're going to have 12 models. The leader, two cult agents, and then the rest is just going to be two Neophyte gunners, two Neophyte heavy gunners, a Neophyte icon, and then you'll have 4 brood adepts, which are just basic Neophytes. There's a lot to talk about here. You're gonna have like 12 activations when you start, which is really good. This is like, you need a lot of activations, I think, in this game to be a really good team. So that's right off the bat a super good sign. But let's take a look at their rules, because they have some cool abilities that are unique to them. Of course, this is a bespoke team we're talking about. For starters, they have two. There's Cult Ambush and there's Preternatural Assassin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Let's look at Cult Ambush first. So every one of the Wyrmblade models has the Cult Ambush ability. Whereas Brood Coven, it's a 1 CP ploy. For Wyrmblade, the ability to change the order on the first turning point, it's just free. You just get it. So this basically means that you're going to set your whole team up in conceal every game with Wyrmblade. There's no reason not to. And on top of that, there's another part to Cult Ambush that Brood Coven don't get. So basically, every time when you activate a model that is in conceal and you switch it to engage for that activation, and then shoot or fight, you get to re-roll all of one result. So let's say you roll your attacks and you roll 2 2s. You get to see what the result is, and you say, all right, I'm going to re-roll 2s, and then you re-roll both of those. So this is actually a really strong ability, and it makes these models that otherwise, like for the gunners, like the heavy gunners specifically, that hit on 4s, it bumps them up into being a little bit more reliable. And for like shotgun guys that hit on 3s, they get a lot more reliable. And this even works for the cult agents too. So we'll get to the cult agents. They're total beasts, and Cult Ambush just makes them more good. But yeah, this is an amazing ability. So this is a team right off the bat, you're going to want to be jumping between conceal and engage back to conceal as much as possible. Let's look at Preternatural Assassin. So this is an ability that the cult agents get. So 2 of the models on your kill team are going to have this ability. Basically, they can't get equipment, which is a bummer. But they have a 4-up invuln, and whenever they're in cover and they're rolling defense dice, instead of retaining 1 for cover, they can retain either 2, which is really good, or they can retain that cover die as a critical save instead of a normal save. So if they're in cover getting shot at, they're actually pretty hard to move for a lot of things. So, and the fact that some of the cult agents we're going to look at later are pretty good in melee too, these models are actually pretty hard to take off the board for a lot of teams. So definitely worth considering. Let's move on to let's skip the strategic plays and the tactical plays. We'll get to them. I want to look at the models themselves right now. So the Neophyte leader, I've looked at this and I've played the team a few times. My favorite outfit here, I'm not going to break down everything, but I really like giving him a bolt pistol because it is, 3-4, and he gets a melee weapon with it. So the chainsword's pretty good. It's got ceaseless. My favorite though is the power pick here with 4-5 rending. He obviously gets Cult Ambush, but he gets an ability called Shadow Vector. So once per turning point, you can use either the Slink into Darkness or Coiled Serpent tactical ploy without spending any command points if a friendly Neophyte operative visible to this operative is the friendly Wyrmblade operative for that ploy. So I know I just said I was going to skip ploys, but let's scroll up and let's look at Slink into Darkness and Coiled Serpent for the purpose of the leader. Give that some context. So Slink into Darkness, basically, when after you activate a model, if they have an engage order, 1 CP, you switch it to a conceal. And you can only use this for each friendly operative once. So if you have like a mining laser that hops out of conceal into engage and blows something up, if the leader sees him, you can for free use Slink into Darkness and switch him back to conceal. This is going to be a pretty common play, like having your gunners shoot and then having your leader give them that free Slink into Darkness to jump back into conceal. Not only does it keep them safe because they're concealed now, but it allows them to hop out of conceal and back into engage next turn and benefit from Cult Ambush again. So this is really good. And the other one is Coiled Serpent. So basically, when you activate a model and they change from conceal to engage, you use Coiled Serpent, and for the first fight or shoot action, you can retain a normal hit as a crit. What I like about this is that a lot of Wyrmblade models have rending. Rending is like relatively common on this team. I don't want to say super common, but that's actually the reason why I like the power pick on the leader, because they have rending. So you use Coiled Serpent, you can, in certain situations, use it on the leader because he is visible to himself, and roll your attack dice, turn a normal hit into a crit, and then with rending, that crit creates another crit. So this is good for other models as well. And it's worth noting also that the Shadow Vector ability here, it only works for Neophytes. So the heroes, the cult agents, they do not get to get a free tactical play from the leader once per turn. This only works for the Neophytes. Still, though, it's a very strong ability. Let's take a look at Kellermorph right now, because he's right here. And I guess after this, we'll look at all the heroes and then wrap back around and look at the Neophyte options again. But Kellermorph is probably my favorite of the four. Not only is he really cool, but he's extremely strong too, and I think he's going to be one of the most common takes for the Wyrmblade teams. So he is 3 APL. You're going to notice that. That's amazing. You know he's got a 4-up invuln because of Preternatural Assassin, and he can retain extra dice. He's got 9 wounds. So he's not that easy to kill. I mean, 9 wounds doesn't look like a lot, but when you got a 4-up invuln, you've got all these extra things keeping you safe. It's pretty interesting. So he's got the Liberator auto stubs. So it's got a long-range profile and a short-range profile. The long-range profile is basically a bolter that hits on 4s, but it has P1 and rending. Again, rending. This is a really good target to use Coiled Serpent on, because not only is Coiled Serpent getting you rending, but it's getting you P1 here too. So that's a huge bump if you're not already rolling a crit. And if you are already rolling a crit, then you're getting 3 crits. So, I mean, that's pretty good. But really the meat and potatoes here is the short range profile. 5 shots on 2s, damage 3-4, right off the bat. This is like the Purgatus that the Novitiates get, their Flamer, after you use the CP to make it like a super Flamer. So this guy has like a super Flamer with P1 and rending, so it's even better. And he has the Kellermorph knife here, which is just a average, not average, I mean, it's okay. It's only 3 attacks, but it's hitting on 3s, 3-4 rending. It's a melee option. Expert Gunslinger, he can do 2 shoot actions, so he can shoot twice. That's amazing, because this gun, this short range gun is so good. The long range gun isn't bad either. And remember, he benefits from Cult Ambush. He has Heroic Inspiration, so if he kills something, he creates a little aura within 3 inches of him that is basically Let the Galaxy Burn. If you're familiar with that ploy, you get to retain a 5-up as a crit. And he has an ability called Hypersense for 1 AP. So this basically replaces, you use Hypersense, and instead of P1 and rending, the short range profile gets indirect and no cover. So it's like a grenade that hits on 2s with 5 shots at 3-4 with no cover. You're really not going to be able to shoot twice with the Hypersense unless they're already within 6 of you, but this is incredible. I mean, this is so insane. I can't stress enough how good Kellermorph is. I've run the math, and if he gets to shoot like a custodian twice, pretty good chance he's gonna kill it. Which means there's basically nothing in the game, for the most part, that should be expected to survive 2 full blasts from the Kellermorph short range profile with the P1 rending. And his ability to switch to indirect if he needs to, he can do a ton of damage. So this guy is amazing. You have to scroll down to get to the other cult agents, so let's do that. Sanctus Sniper. This is basically, I mean, same profile. All the cult agents are 9 wounds with the 4-up invuln. This is like the veteran guard sniper, except he's a lot tankier, obviously. He can give himself lethal 5, and for 1 AP, he basically has an Omnispecs that he gives himself. So he can ignore obscurity, he can give himself no cover, he can shoot through smoke grenades. The sniper itself, I mean, it's 4 shots on 2s, 3-3, heavy, silent, mortal wound 3. This is a really, really strong sniper model. It's probably the best sniper in the game, if I'm being honest. It not only is it shooting from silent, but even if you do get to shoot it, it's really hard to kill because of the 4-up invuln and the preternatural assassin buffs that it gets from being in cover. This is probably the thing you would take if you are seeing a really good vantage point in cover, like in your drop zone, because then you're probably going to be able to shoot turn 1 and just keep him up there forever. Everything about this, I mean, he wants to use target vulnerability. He wants to use familiar soul sight. This guy wants to sit in one spot all game and just shoot things, preferably from a vantage point. If you have that option in your DZ, then the viability of the Sanctus Sniper like skyrockets. But again, it's going to be pretty matchup dependent because there's another option that I think is really strong. Moving on to the Sanctus Talon, this is not the option that I think is super strong, but again, all these models are good. He is a melee guy. He's got the 4-up invuln, you know, all the good stuff. He's got a Sanctus Bio Dagger. So this is a really interesting profile. 4 attacks on 2s. Damage 3-6, lethal 4, and stun. So his crits are really strong. He gets lethal 4. If you use his familiar soul sight, then his weapon gets brutal and balanced. Brutal's not that helpful because you're critting a lot of the time anyway. Balanced is pretty helpful though, because pretty good odds with a reroll that you're gonna get another crit on this. So pretty good. And with Creeping Shadow, which is an ability that he just gets, he can charge from conceal, which is really nice. And after he fights in combat, he can perform a free dash action regardless of any other actions he's done, and even if it's within engagement range of an enemy operative. So basically, he can jump in, hit you, and dash away, so that way you can't. You're not stuck in combat with him, or maybe he kills something and then he gets to dash into cover or something. So this is really interesting. In my opinion, it's not the best option, and I think out of the 4, it's probably the worst, and it's the one you're going to see the least, specifically because of Locus here, who is the other melee-specific option, but he is way better than the Sanctus Talon, in my opinion. So let's look at his weapon. First of all, he does have a ranged option. It's only 3-inch, but it's silent. It's basically a bolt gun. 4 on 3s at 3-4, but it has silent. And then he gets the Locus Blades, which is a power weapon, but it's got 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, 4-6, lethal 5. This is extremely strong. But the real power of Locus comes when you look at his ability. So first of all, he has the Duelist ability. So every time he fights in combat, whether it's him initiating the attack or the opponent, before the attacker does their first, before they allocate their first attack dice, he can basically interrupt the process and do a parry. This is extremely strong. Say you're fighting and your opponent gets 2 hits. You get like all 5 of your hits because you're hitting on 2s, so it's pretty good odds. You can use Duelist to parry their 1, and then with your first normal one, parry again, then they're out and you have 3 hits and you just kill them. This is really, really good, but it gets even better. With Expert Swordsman, he can perform 2 fight actions during its activation, and after he fights, every time he fights, and this is even if it's not his activation, because this is not specifying after this operative does a fight action, it's after it fights. So even if somebody else fights you, you'll get this. You can perform a free charge action, even if you've already done so, this activation, but you can only move up to 3 inches. So this guy can fight something, he can charge something, kill it, charge something else next to it, and then kill that because he's allowed to fight twice. This is what this reminds me of is, and I've talked to some people about this too, is it is very similar to a Khorne Berserker in last edition. Their ability to bounce around and fight, and there's no limit on the amount of extra charges you can get. So you can fight something, or like, let's say you charge something with your first APL, and then you fight and kill. And then you get the 3-inch charge, you charge onto something else, you fight it, that's your third APL, the second fight, kill it. You can charge again. There's no limit on the amount of charges you can do with this. There is a limit on the amount of fights you can do. So this basically means that you can, in a single activation, you can fight twice and charge 3 times. That's just crazy. If your opponent misplaces a few key models, Locus is going to feast, and he can single-handedly win you a game. So I mean, you compare this to the Sanctus talon, who's okay in his own right, but you're always going to pick the Locus over him, in my opinion. He hits harder, he's way more flexible, and some of the interactions he has are just crazy. So he also has the Quicksilver Strike ability. I'm not going to read this whole thing. What it basically means is it's a 1 AP action, and when you do it, you create a 3-inch aura around Locus, where if an enemy model moves or dashes within 3 inches of him in that aura, Locus can interrupt, charge, and fight it. You get a free fight action and a free charge action. That's insane. Even if you have a conceal order when they come within 3 inches of you, it allows you to change to engage in order to do so. Yeah, so a lot of the time, this is just like a keep away. You'll use this when you don't have a charge option and you want to move dash up onto an objective, stand on it, hopefully in cover, and pop Quicksilver Strike so nobody can go on that objective anymore. You can't go near him. If you try, he's going to kill you. And if you charge him, he's going to get to parry before you even hit. So even if you're initiating the fight, it's hard to kill him. If you're shooting him, he's got Preternatural Assassin, so it's going to be hard to actually get damage through on him because of the 4-up invuln and the extra retains you get. I mean, this guy is so good. And if you can't tell, my 2 favorite options are Locus and Kellermorph. These models are just crazy strong. So let's look at the Neophytes really quick. I mean, if you're familiar with Brood Coven, you kind of know what they do. The Brood Adepts, my favorites. These are the basic guys. You're going to take 4 of them. They're GA2. I'm usually going to run them with shotguns. The shotguns with Cult Ambush are pretty good, and the 6-inch range is fine because it plays into what you want to do, which is stay and conceal, hide, pop out, shoot somebody with a shotgun. It's really good. You're going to take 2 gunners. The key here is the grenade launcher. This is really strong. Flamer and Weber, they're going to end up performing really similarly to each other, so don't stress too much on which choice you make there. Just make sure that you have a grenade launcher. Neophyte Heavy Gunner, he can take a mining laser, which is probably the go-to. This is an extremely strong model, especially with Cult Ambush. You can take a seismic cannon, which is all right. Doesn't hit that hard, but he also gets a heavy stubber, which I like because of Ceaseless. When you consider that this model has 5 attacks on 4s with Ceaseless and Cult Ambush, it's pretty close to like having Relentless, basically. You're going to reroll all 1s plus 1 other result, 2s or 3s. This is pretty good, in my opinion. I'm really enjoying the heavy stubber with this guy, with his team. And then the last thing is the Icon Bearer. So his the thing to talk about here is he's basically a normal Brood Adept, except he gets this icon. When he activates the aura, models within 3 inches of him for Cult Ambush, instead of rerolling 1 result, they basically get Relentless. So you're going to want to stick this guy next to your mining laser, or next to your grenade launcher, or just one of your gunners, and benefit as much as you can from from Cult Ambush. This is extremely good. Full rerolls with a mining laser, for instance, is just going to melt almost anything. Yeah, let's take a look at the strategic ploys. Their strategic ploys are really interesting. Meticulous plan, you can do this once per game. You basically get to do mission actions or pickup actions for 1 less AP. This is really good because they have Infiltrate as one of their 2. So if you're taking Infiltrate, you're probably going to end up taking some Tac Ops that have 2 APL mission actions. You can pop Meticulous Plan once per game and make that mission action doable for a lot of your 2 APL Neophytes. And this only works for Neophytes. It doesn't work for the 3 APL Cult Agents. One with the Shadows, you turn all light terrain into obscuring terrain for when, assuming you have a conceal order, if your opponent's shooting at you. So it only goes one way. This has a lot of potential. I'm not sure how strong it is, but I think on certain maps, there's definitely a lot of play. Writhing Ingress. I love this one. Once per game, you can basically, you place a token within 1 inch of a terrain feature, no more than 1 inch thick, and for the whole game, it creates a door basically within an inch of that terrain, within an inch of that token that only your models can go through. This is super cool. You can set it up with, say you have Locus in a spot where turn 2, maybe there's a wall that you want to make him charge through and wreak havoc. You can do that. That's probably the best use of it, but I just love the potential for this ploy. There's a lot of cool stuff. And then there's Crossfire, where basically the simple way to describe it is if you shoot at something during that turn and it lives, it gets a Crossfire token, and then your other models, when they shoot at the model with a Crossfire token, they can retain a hit before rolling. So kind of like Marker Lights, but yeah, I mean, it's cool. Sling into Darkness, Called Serpent, I talked about those. Unquestioning Loyalty. Basically, if your leader or one of your cult agents other than Locus is getting... So basically, when your leader or any cult agent is selected as a target for combat, you spend a CP if there's a Locus or Neophyte within 3 inches, and then you can charge the model that's charging you, and then that enemy model is forced to fight the intervening Neophyte or Locus instead of the guy that they wanted to fight the first time. So this is definitely, it's very disruptive. You can really like set up little traps on your opponent with something like this. I like it a lot. And then the juiciest, coolest thing is hiding. So 1 CP hiding, for those of you that played Kill Team last edition, you know about reserves. This is kind of like reserves. You set up 2 of your models in deployment to be hiding, basically, and you don't deploy them, and then in turn 1, you can, when it's your turn to activate a model, you can choose to put one of your models from hiding on the board. As long as it's within 6 inches of your drop zone and more than 3 inches from enemy operatives, it's considered to have made a normal move, and then you can continue its activation as normal. This is extremely strong. You can see like everything that your opponent does, and then drop a couple models in like a grenade launcher, for instance, and blow something up. And the other kind of underrated use of this, I think, is going to be putting so because when you put a model up in hiding, for the first activation when you set it up, it's considered to have a group activation characteristic of 1. If you put one of your regular Brood adapts, which is GA2, and hiding, for that first turn when you set it up, it's group activation 1, which means that for the first turn, you're getting 1 more activation than you normally would, which means you can stall your opponent out just a little bit more and try to make it so that you get that last activation, which is really crucial, especially at higher levels of play. I think this ploy is going to be something you see every single game from Wyrmblade. This is an awesome ability, and nothing else in the game is like it right now. So this is pretty key. Last thing I want to talk about is the equipment. I will say if there's one thing that is a little bit underwhelming about this team, it's the equipment. They don't have anything that sticks out as being super duper strong. You've got frag grenades. You've got blasting charges. I really like blasting charges. Putting 1 Neophyte in hiding with a blasting charge is really cool, and setting up like a turn 2 where you have 2 GA2 blasting charge guys running up to your opponent and lighting them up with grenades. That's really strong. The flash visor, not super useful. Ignore modifiers to APL. Spotlight, I've seen some people say that they like this. Basically, if you're within 6 inches of a model with a spotlight, an enemy operative with a spotlight, you won't be considered obscured. So maybe a little bit niche, but I think it definitely has its use for sure. Cult Talisman, I like putting this in a gunner. Once per game, you can turn a normal defense dice save into a critical save. Climbing equipment, 1 EP. This has been talked about a lot with a lot of bespoke teams. Really useful. Just being able to ignore some of the distance. It just helps with your mobility when you're climbing and dropping. And there's the Cult Knife. This is just absolute garbage. Never take this. But really, overall, I mean, the only thing left to talk about is the faction Tac Ops. I guess I'll go over them really quick. I love Nowhere Unreachable. Basically, your opponent places a token that is more than 6 inches from their drop zone. Basically, if you are within 1 inch of it, you get a point at the end of the turn, and you just have to do that twice. The fact that it's more than 6 inches from the drop zone makes it really easy. It's kind of like Retrieval, I believe it's a Recon Tac Op, except Retrieval, they have to set it up more than 3 inches from the drop zone, so it's harder. And with Retrieval, you have to pick it up and carry it. With this, not only is it farther from them, but you don't have to pick it up. You just have to stand next to it. So I love this. Perfect Ambush is really interesting. You reveal it during a turn, and then in that turn, if you did more damage to... If enemy models lost more wounds than friendly models, you get a VP, and then you get another VP if the cult agents did more damage, basically, than they did to you. It's a little bit risky. Sometimes you might not get the second bullet, and you'll get the first bullet, because once you get the first bullet, you can't get the second bullet in another turn. It has to all be on the same turn. So, and then there's Mark for Assassination, which I think is probably the worst. Basically, you do a 1 AP action with a Neophyte to an enemy operative within 3 inches of it, and it has to be a GA1. It can't be like a super chaff model. Then it becomes marked, and you need to kill it, and then you get the point. So there's a lot going on here. This seems pretty difficult. Not a huge fan. Nowhere Unreachable is my favorite here. Perfect Ambush absolutely has some play, but it's a little bit more situational. They have Seek and Destroy and Infiltrate, like I mentioned, so say you're taking Seek and Destroy, you can easily replace like Execution or something with Nowhere Unreachable. But yeah, I mean, this is basically my quote-unquote short breakdown of the Wyrmblade kill team. I'm really enjoying this team. I hope everybody that has gotten the chance to play it is really enjoying it. I'm excited to see how good they are. I think they're quite good, honestly. They're not going to be played at LVO, unfortunately, but there's going to be a lot of tournaments afterwards, like KTO, and there's going to be a lot of TTS tournaments. We'll see, because I think they're quite strong, and they seem like a lot of fun, and I'm personally really excited to play them. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you are not subscribed and you stumbled upon this and you enjoyed it, then really consider subscribing and clicking the bell. It would help us out a ton. And if you're already subscribed and you're enjoying our videos, then give our Patreon a consideration. You're going to have access to early uploads, and some of my rambles, and every other podcast is going to be available after the stream for Patreon only. So that's a consideration. But yeah, otherwise, have a good one, and enjoy the new Wyrmblade team here.